Good afternoon, everyone. There's a a saying in life where people articulate events that occur and things that happen in the context of time as the beginning of the end. I tend to look at life a little differently. I tend to be more hopeful, I guess, and so I would characterize what happened today as the end of the beginning. That while what happened today puts a legal closure to the criminal proceedings, let's put aside the federal matter just for our purposes here, puts a legal closure to this tragic incident on May 14th of 2022. It certainly does not put any closure on what we need to do as a society and as a community going forward. And a lot of people have articulated and stated in various fashions and on various mediums of ideas that need to be in place to go forward. Where do we go as a community? Where do we go as a city? Where do we go in terms of the legal system and the criminal justice system and how it affects not only particular cases but society at large? And so these are questions that we need to answer, that us as leaders of the criminal justice system and the mayor and of all levels of government need to answer. What happened today, though, what happened throughout the prosecution of this case is still important. I would say that justice was done with a small j today, but we still have the big J of justice to do. But the small j for justice that occurred today was important. We should not minimize that. And in looking toward the future and in looking what we need to do, we still need to keep in light of what happened in the past 6 months. This prosecution and the resolution of this case is unprecedented. The mayor correctly stated it at the very beginning on May 14th or May 15th, that swift justice is needed. And swift justice was done. Not only was it swift, it was just. It was just in the sense that he pled guilty to every charge. He pled guilty to, for the first time in the history of New York State, the domestic terrorism charge motivated by hate. Never been done in the history of the state of New York. It was done here in Buffalo, New York. And today, he received the just sentence for the commission of that crime. And I know that one of the family members spoke about, I'm going to follow you for the rest of your life and whenever you're up for parole, et cetera, et cetera. There is no parole here. He is never getting out of jail. The federal prosecution is relevant, obviously, in terms of whether or not he is going to get the death penalty. But that's the only decision that really needs to be made in this entire process. He will spend, no matter what, the rest of his life behind bars. Never eligible for parole, never eligible for probation, never eligible for anything except viewing bars behind them for the rest of his life. Period. And that, I submit, is justice. As a DA, Most of you all know me. There's some out-of-town reporters here, you don't know me, but I tend to stay in my lane. And, my lane is obviously a narrow lane, but it's important. It's important in the sense that a message needed to be sent that this individual was going to be held accountable for his actions. Now, I get it that whenever these mass shootings occur and tragedies like this happen nationwide, one just happened yesterday in Michigan State, the sides, whatever side you're on, tend to get out there. We need gun control. No, it's not gun control. We need people control. No, it's not people control. We need online control. As those of you who know me, I don't like sides. I like solutions. Everything needs to be on the table. Yes, we have a gun problem. Yes, we have a social media problem. But we also have a people problem. And that cannot be discounted. People need to be held accountable for their actions. People need to be taken off the streets and put away in prison to remove them from society. This defendant needed to be removed from society, taken off the streets, and put behind bars for the rest of his life. And he was. And that gives me some satisfaction. As I said before, obviously we got a lot of work to do. We need to make sure that from a DA's perspective, that anyone who commits a hate crime, anyone who incites active violence based upon people's race, religion, creed, color, whatever it may be held accountable for their actions. And that is what I will do in my remaining time as DA. I know that a lot of the family members spoke today. We all knew that today's sentence was a foregone conclusion, quite frankly, in the sense that when he pled guilty a few months ago, he was getting this sentence no matter what. But today gave the family members an opportunity to speak, and to speak publicly, and to speak to the system. And they did, and I thank them for that. I thank my assistant DA, Justin Caldwell, for speaking on behalf of my office and telling the judge what we exactly wanted, which is obviously what we wanted from the get-go. By him pleading guilty to the charge of domestic terrorism, he will never get out of jail. And I thank Justin for that as well. Now, again, where we go forward from here is a question we all need to answer. Not just those of us in law enforcement, but all of us in society. The immediate future, obviously, is continuing to help these families. And as the DA, I always try to keep the victims of crime first and foremost in my eyes and on my mind. And even though the case is over, from my perspective, we still need to help the victims. And I want to echo what the defense attorney, Mr. Parker, stated, where he stated on the record that he was willing to help the families in their pursuits of investigative materials to help them in their civil suits. And I want to echo that as well. I am here to help the families. there right now are two protective orders in place. There is a state protective order in place that precludes me from giving any information away to the victims or their attorneys. Now, that protective order on the state side does not automatically go away today by operation of law. That continues on until we change it. And so I will be making, in some form or fashion, a motion to the court to get that protective order lifted, or asking it to be lifted. On the federal side, the problem is that I'm going to guess that 99.9% of all the investigative materials that I have, the feds also have. We have the same stuff. If there's 5 sheets of paper that are different, I'd be shocked. And so the problem is going to be that while that federal case is pending, it's going to be difficult for the feds to release that documentation to the families. And so, like I mentioned, there is a federal order, protective order in place that has my name on it. Now, I was never a party to that at all. I never consented to that at all, but somehow the Erie County DA's office name got put on that protective order. So I will be also, in some fashion, making a motion to the federal court to get my name removed from that. And I am hopeful that we can work out an agreement that's somehow judicially supervised, where the materials can be turned over to the civil attorneys so they can review it and prepare their lawsuits, and then a protective order put on them where they can't disclose to the public. There's things like that that can be done. And so I am hopeful that that can occur. Obviously, this would all be a moot point if the federal case gets resolved sooner rather than later. But again, I'm not going to step on their toes at all. I will not be commenting at all about whether or not I think the death penalty should be in place or not be in place, or anything about the federal case at all. I'll stay in my lane, and I'm not going to step on their toes or get into that at all. But I am going to get into continuing to help the families and doing everything I can to help them further along. So with that being said, let me just end here with my heartfelt thanks and gratitude. Obviously, none of this would have taken place today without the City of Buffalo. And the City of Buffalo includes the mayor's office and the Buffalo Police Department. And obviously, it was the heroic members of the Buffalo Police Department that arrived on the scene. You talk about swiftness. The swiftness of justice pales in comparison to the swiftness of the Buffalo Police Department in responding to that 911 call and getting the tops within minutes. And so I cannot thank the Buffalo Police Department, the commissioner, and the mayor of the great city of Buffalo, Byron Brown, for all of his work and all of their work in bringing this case to fruition. Mayor, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.